Facebook, how you looking over there? Facebook is going okay. Instagram, how you looking over there? You're going okay. Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Jada, your weight loss and wellness expert, physician, coach, speaker, author, best selling author. Yes, 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 we did it. Best selling author of the recently released book, Girl, Get Ready to Lose the Damn Weight. Girl, get ready to lose the damn weight. So, yes, it's got a little umph to it because I am so serious about the content, but I do it in a fun loving way. I'm so glad that you joined me tonight. We moved times. We did change times. Thank you, Shelby. That's my cousin Shelby from the M Town. Thank you, Shelby. I'm super, super excited. I promise y'all that more is coming on the book. I've just been doing like a lot of things right now, and but I'm definitely really proud of birthing that book and getting it out. And I think it's in great timing too, as we go into the holidays and for those that do celebrate, and as we even begin the beginning of the year soon, close out 2021. I definitely believe there's a lot that is relevant that would be really I think it would be life changing, honestly. I think that book has that potential and will be that for you. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about something that is a theme for the week. Hey, Dr. Corellis, thank you for joining. So, there's a theme, and Girl Talk Live, sometimes I talk about different things, for whatever reason. I have some things planned out in terms of content, and sometimes it just depends on what comes up or what theme of the week that is there. And so the theme of the week, the last couple of weeks actually has been guilt. I have been in the office doing consultations where I talk with people and kind of get an understanding of what's going on and where I may be able to help them with my weight loss services and with even coaching as well. So, one common theme that seems to be coming up is around guilt. And a couple of examples is one person that I was consulting with, and we were working through and deciding how we would move forward. And the person was like, you know what? I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if I can move forward. I just feel so guilty about, moving forward or making this commitment. I just feel guilty. And so I tried to explore that a little bit more, and I'll bring up in just a moment what I want the points that I want to make with it. And then I had another client who had recently had, no, not recently, had a few years ago had um, by actually a gastric sleeve, had a gastric sleeve, and she has experienced some weight gain or weight regain, which 70 as much as 70%, in fact, even greater than that in some communities of people who have um, those types of surgeries can experience weight regain. We call that attrition rate. And so this person had been really, really doing well up until a certain point, and then started to have some challenges. And actually, a couple of people that were in this situation, similar situation, different people, but held off on reaching out to get help or to find out what could be done next because they felt guilty about the weight regain, felt guilty about having to have that conversation, felt guilty for uh, being, I guess, in that statistic, in that number, in that category. So that resulted in delays, as the first person that I mentioned will result in delays. And it's made me start thinking about a lot of the conversations that I'm in with women around guilt. Guilt for being away from the kids, guilt from having to work, guilt from not having enough resources, guilt from not, being able to be everything that their spouse needs. Like it's just overwhelmed with guilt. Like any way you pull it, just guilt. So it made me think that this would be a great topic for discussion. So that's what I wanted to do tonight. I want to open up. I, of course, will facilitate, but I just wanted to open up tonight around the discussion of guilt. Have any of you felt guilty for prioritizing yourself, for example, or felt guilty for making a decision that was going to make you feel supported or happy, or um, something that was going to put you first in this case, which doesn't necessarily mean that others are last. It's just that you choose to address your own need, desire, want first. So I wanted to open up that discussion. Hey, Dr. Erica, thanks for jumping in. Thanks for jumping in. That's my psychiatry friend and bestie on the block, my mogul friend. Hey, good to see you. So, we get into these guilty these almost like kind of the trenches of guilt, and it's almost like one thing leads to another. So guilt in general comes from, first of all, it's a low vibe energy. It's a low vibe energy, and that in of itself is not something that we want to operate within, right? We always want to be high vibing. We always want to be in a vibration that serves us. And guilt is not one of those. It's a low vibration, low frequency, and it just doesn't serve us. So when guilt gets in the way, what happens? One is we don't make clear decisions in the moment. We don't make clear decisions about things that are important. We don't make clear decisions that are in the best interest of all involved in the situation or circumstance. We make it in the shadows of a feeling that we've embraced, that we've allowed, that we've given permission to kind of pepper and salt and sprinkle itself into the situation or the circumstance. Do you see what I mean? So it almost becomes a cloudy decision, and it doesn't necessarily serve you, and ultimately may not fully serve the circumstance at hand. So we have to think about those things. So in the example that I gave of the person who was feeling guilty about gaining the weight back, feeling guilty about, well, this is the direction that I went in. And sometimes guilt leads to feelings of failure. Sometimes that failure leads to feelings of frustration. Sometimes that frustration leads to feelings of worry, anxiety, self-doubt, and so many other. Do you see what I'm saying? So it almost like these reinforcing powers that be come to say, yep, you should feel guilty, and you should feel bad too. Oh, if you're feeling bad, you should feel sad. Oh, if you're feeling sad, that's so bad. I'm sure that's frustrating. And if you're frustrated, oh, that's too bad. You just, that's just kind of your life anyway. It's just full of frustration. That's just who you are. It's what you attract. Then it brings in self-doubt. So you see how all of these begin to work together. So now you have all these negative frequencies and this inner critic chatter, blah, 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 going on. And that's what's calling the shots. So now is your decision making. And in this case, she delayed. So after a delay, now there's even more weight gain. Now there's even more frustration. Now there's even more disappointment. Now there's even more worry and more self-doubt and lower self-esteem and all of these things in the space of guilt. Who's the guilt serving? Guilty for who or why? So we begin to make decisions that create a negative snowball effect. So then you get into blood pressure issues in her case, and having to go back on blood pressure medicines, and all of those different frustrations that keep on adding up. So a few things for you to think about that I bring up, and I want you to jump in, and anybody who wants to jump in and kind of dialogue on screen, please feel free to ask on Instagram if to share screen. I don't know if I can do it on Facebook yet, but I know I could do it on on Instagram. So how many of y'all have been in these situations, or you know people who they never want to do anything, they can't ever make a decision because they're always, feeling guilty about, well, I would do it, but I have to do this first, or I have to, and don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about irresponsibility. I'm not talking about shirking your responsibilities and, not taking care of things that are important or things that require immediate attention and not that kind of stuff. These instances that made me bring this conversation up are really instances where it's self-imposed guilt. Is self-imposed. So there's this underlying assumption or faulty belief that me doing this is to the exclusion of somebody else's situation being good, better, or best. And that's a lot to take on. It's a lot to take on, and it doesn't even feel good. There's then you throw in addition to frustration and disappointment and all this stuff, then you throw in resentment. So in cases, a lot of times when I'm talking with people, they resent their, people around them, they resent their jobs, they resent their bosses, they resent their spouses, and because these things begin to come up too, because whatever it is that's the subject of this guilt creates resentment because you're made to feel that way. And so in the cases of the two people that I'm referring to, when guilt gets in the way, it could actually affect your overall health and well-being significantly, significantly, to the extent that now in these cases, having to take medications again, not feeling good, not feeling confident, all of that spills over into relationships, into how you communicate, and all of this extra baggage. So, in the face of guilt, we have to look at, why are we experiencing the guilt in the first place? What is this related to? What is the real root of this feeling or this emotion? And then we have to ask ourselves, is this really true? Who else, like, where does this come from? Who reinforces this? Is this something that, we've even gotten feedback? And if we have, what was that? What was the context of that feedback? And was it specifically related to this situation or circumstance? Because sometimes not only do we take on the guilt of now, but we build upon it like a snowball effect, guilty situations or guilty experiences in the past. So the questions are, who is the guilt serving? Why is the guilt there anyway? What is it related to? And what would happen? What's happening as a result of operating out of guilt? What doesn't get done? What doesn't get accomplished? What don't you enjoy? What do you give up? What are you sacrificing? What's at stake? What's at risk? What's the cause and effect of this? What's the fallout of it? And these questions, I think, I'm not necessarily giving you the answers, but I'm giving you something to think about as you look at decisions that you make or don't make, as you look at what's best for you in your life at this time. Sometimes the guilt of not doing something right the first time, sometimes the guilt of not succeeding in something, and maybe it was a business deal that didn't go like you wanted it to. Maybe it was a step that you made in your business that didn't have the outcome that you expected. And, maybe it cost something. There was some financial association to it. Maybe it's the, experience of, having to close out a relationship at a certain period of time, having to decide that, this situation isn't healthy. It's not good for me right now. And I have to step away from it so that I can be better, so that I can be at my best, so I can sort it out. Sometimes it's just a matter of sorting it out. So someone put here, I guess for me, when I'm feeling guilty, I guess in the back of my mind is the choice I make What if I fail? Would I not be committed? And I love that question. I love that comment. I love that comment. And this is a really, really juicy one because I have gotten that so much. And I even had a case. Hey, Shelby, thanks for joining. Hey, just real quick, I even had a case of a person that was questioning. Kind of asked a number of questions, which I love questions because you could tell I love to talk. But at a certain point, what became very apparent is this person it wasn't their question of me or my capacity or my competency or my ability or my commitment or my stick-wittedness or what I could offer or bring in this situation, circumstance, and condition. That I began to understand that it was not about me. The inability to commit or the question of whether or not this would work was really a self-trust issue. Do I trust myself? Do I trust myself to be committed to this program or to this plan or to this timeline or to this, prescription or to this requirement? And even in choices that we make in business, if I sign up for this, if I register for that, am I going to use this information? Am I going to make good on it? Will there be a return on the investment? And of course, in the back of our minds is failure, especially if you've had a taste of failure and you did not reconcile that failure. What do I mean? If you had an instance in your life, in your experience, in your situation or circumstance, that things didn't go well, they didn't go right, they didn't go as planned, they didn't go, and you allowed yourself to blame, shame, to operate in blame, shame, or guilt, and you never went back to reconcile that situation, meaning that what happened happened, no story around it. What happens? I bet it all, and I bet it all, and I came back with zero. That's what happened. What happened? But what happens is we create a story around it. I bet it all. I wasn't ready. I didn't try hard enough. I didn't have the money in the first place. I would, if I had only done, shoulda, woulda, coulda, and then get into the blank. Nobody else was helping me. I had asked some people to show up and they didn't show up. I didn't have anything else so we get into blame, shame, and what? Guilt. And if we don't reconcile those and reframe that, then it is hard to move forward with new challenges or new tries or new opportunities, because there's the background, there's the shadow, there's the dark side of what ifs, what ifs, what ifs. So thanks for joining me, Shelby. I'm so glad you jumped on. I appreciate that. It takes a lot of boldness and courage to jump on this screen, y'all. It ain't easy. It is not easy to be on this screen. And for my Facebook people, I'm going to try to make sure you can hear the question because I haven't figured that part out yet. So you can hear the question and hear our dialogue. If not, I'm on Instagram, also streaming on Instagram at DRJADAMD if you want to jump over there. So, hey, Shelby, what's up? Tell us what's going on. What popped into your head tonight?
Well, I just feel like it's ironic that you're talking about this because you know me. I've been up and down with my weight. Right now, I'm up.
Shelby said, I've been up and down, and right now I'm up. Thank you for being here, Shelby. Just lay it out there.
I'm up.
Right now. And I'm up right now.
I'm up. So on Facebook, you know how to give you the memories.
Yeah.
Show the memory of me 10 years ago.
Yes.
Where I was 39.
Yes.
I'm 49 now. And I was so gung-ho about not being fat at 40. And I look great in that picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm looking at myself at 49 heading to 50. And I'm like, this is not the look.
Yeah.
So I looked at it and I tried to, instead of beating myself up, I tried to look at what's different. Like, Yeah, I lost the weight. Yeah, I know I can stick to it when I have my mind to. I can do it, but I feel like I didn't do the mental work of it. And I think you led me to that part, because when I was talking to you, if you remember about some trauma that happened in my life,
right, some
and
trauma.
you brought up that I had post traumatic stress, and I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
And then it was like from that point on, when I had those few sessions with you, stuff just started going. And then I started, I still pushed along.
Sure.
And I thought about it, but then it started affecting me. So then I started going into therapy and counseling and stuff. And so I have been making it a point to get that right so that this next go around, I don't have to go through this again. Because I'm getting too old and I can't keep going through trying to get it off. I need to figure out how to keep it off. Yeah. Done with it. So I feel like at this point I don't have any guilt with it, but in the past I've had a lot of guilt, a lot of frustrations. Yeah. And like I said, when I saw that picture, it almost triggered, but I was like, no, look at where you were then and where you are now, and what did you see differently? So that's all I was just wanting to state that.
I love that, Shelby, and I just love the fact that you are, first of all, in tune. The second thing is that you are still in it. You haven't, decided or thrown in the towel or given up. Although there may have been some times over this that you felt so frustrated and so at wit's end. And I get it. A lot of times people I'm working with, they just felt like this was it was a resolve that had to happen. I just resolved that this is it. But that part of you that says, no, but this ain't it, because I'm not really content with it. But then not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go, trying something else, and that's not working. And then that adds another layer of guilt and frustration. I totally get it. I love what you said, though, is that at some point you had to look a little bit deeper outside the physical. And that's one important piece that I think gets overlooked, because there's such a drive or a desire to change the physical appearance. Yeah. That it's almost like I'll do anything. And that's another talk. I got another talk coming up for that one. I'll do anything except other things that really route you to that deeper level of work. So I commend you for first of all, for being in that conversation with me. So Shelby shared that she and I had a conversation, and a few conversations, dialogue sessions, whatever you want to call it. And we really started to drill down to a lot of times what I say are behaviors, sabotaging behaviors.
Yeah, exactly.
And so those sabotaging behaviors, they have roots too. Those sabotaging behaviors have roots. And if you look back, and if you look at it carefully, those are probably present in other areas of your life. Yeah. It's just more obvious when it comes to the physical, because that's where you see the symptom, which is the weight gain. Are y'all following me with that? Does that make sense? Yeah. So those self-sabotaging behaviors, which are obviously not intentional, but they're built in. They're built into your psyche, your consciousness, your level of reasoning, or the inability to reason beyond that immediate emotion or that immediate thought or that immediate solution, which can often result in an emotional response, another emotional response. Yeah. Right? So now we get a secondary emotion that's involved. So we started out with a frustration or guilt, and then the next thing we have a secondary emotion. Maybe that's stress, maybe that's anger, maybe that's sadness. At a certain point, body's going to say, you know what, this ain't going well. I don't want to cry. I want something to fix it. Yep. So guess what? Brain kicks in and says, hey, I remember the last time you were feeling like this. All we had to do was, we got some ice cream, or we got a big piece of cake, or we got both. And, and we started to feel better. And that's a thing. It really is a thing. And so I often will tell people, don't blame yourself too much because it's physiology.
Yep.
That's almost like what I call the anatomy of a craving. And that's another talk. Y'all remind me of that. That's the anatomy of a craving. I'm going to go through that. That's going to be a good one. So, and then what happens after that satisfying moment? So what happens, first of all, is that dopamine, the happy chemical, the happy brain chemical, it's like, yes, see, don't you feel better? Don't you feel better? And you're like, as you're eating it, yeah, I do feel better. So all that starts to settle down until you're done. And then what happens?
The guilt.
The guilt. The guilt. The disappointed in yourself. Then the anger. Then the frustration. And all of those other, kind of like hoodies, they come to join those emotions and just reinforce it and reinforce it and reinforce it. And that cycle is really challenging to break because it's your one desire against all of these saboteurs.
Yep.
And and sometimes what could be most frustrating is when you make a final line and saying, I'm just not gonna do it. And you're good for 3 or 4 days, maybe even 3 or 4 weeks, even a month. And then some overwhelm hits. Something happens at work, something happens in a relationship, family, and then it just crumbles. And then that cycle starts all back over again. It's like, but I was doing so well, and then it immediately terminates and goes back into that cycle. So you can see where guilt can be. Absolutely, Tasha, it is. It sure will, babe. I'll make sure of it. Thank you for asking that. So when we get into those cycles, those emotional cycles, some people may not feel comfortable saying emotional. And by the way, I want y'all to know that emotions are not always bad emotions. They're not always sad. They're not always anger. They're not always there are good emotions too.
Yeah.
Really happy and celebratory and, excited. And so there's so many other emotions. However, that trigger in that center of the brain that says, oh, we're excited. We're happy. Something good is happening. We should celebrate. Let's go grab this.
Yep.
Let's go grab that. So it just completely dumps on your commitment, which then says, I just can't do this, which then reinforces this sense of failure. And therefore, and because the scale tells the story or your clothes tell the story, it's like that reinforces, yeah, you kind of are, because those things are still like that, or it's changed for it's gone up. So, that kind of behavior, it doesn't change because you do, Whole30. That type of experience doesn't change because you do the Daniel fast. This whole physiological, emotional, psychosocial, emotional is what we call it. It doesn't shift because you're keto this week or this month, or you decide to do a vegan protocol. So it's like so many things are there in the background that are just reinforced, what we call patterns, that it becomes really challenging to see that physical response consistently.
Yep.
So that we get a new reinforcement, what we call positive reinforcement, before we can really get to that positive reinforcement and rely on it and trust it, we get yanked back into the negative reinforcement. See, I told you can do it. What was you thinking? You shouldn't even try it anyway. Are you kidding me? Now look what you done wasted money, and you and you and now and you posted that picture last month of you lost 3 pounds, and now this month it ain't no point in posting nothing because so it's like this mind chatter.
Yes.
This mind chatter. So I'm glad you brought that up in the importance and the critical pieces outside of the physical container that we operate in. There's always a deeper, not always, because I don't operate in those superlatives, but most of the time, a lot of the time, there are other deeper things that we really have to take a look at. So I applaud you for taking a look at those things. And sometimes you and I know, and you may agree that when you make that decision to go deeper, it is not a comfortable feeling.
It's not.
It do not feel good. It's like, what was I thinking? I don't want to do it. This is painful. It hurts. It's because stuff gets in your face, and it's just, then you reflect back on the time that was lost thinking this way, feeling this way, and then that don't feel good. So and just the truth of the matter is that when we get into that level of healing so that we can be healthy, healing sometimes it hurts.
Yes.
Sometimes healing hurts. So being able to go back again and just reassess and say, what is so today? What is so today? Where am I? If I chose a new slate, which you get to do every single day. Every single day you get to decide, you get to choose again. You get to say yes to you. You get to say yes to a new opportunity. You get a chance to say yes to loving on yourself, yes to being generous and kind to yourself, yes to being compassionate, yes to reaching out, yes to the truth. Yes to the truth. I think so often the past can create so many barriers or smoke screens that have us in the belief of a false truth. And it doesn't make room for healthy growth. It doesn't make room for really tapping into a greater level of fulfillment, joy, peace, purpose, wisdom, health, and wealth. It doesn't allow us to do that because we're so tethered, is the word, to the past. So I like the idea of just being gentle and kind and loving and caring every single moment of the day. And you have to be able to get to a point of sourcing help. That's something that we don't do a lot in certain communities. We're supposed to know everything and don't get a degree or two. Don't get, a certification or two. Don't get a check or two. It's almost like the higher that you're supposed to be, the greater the pressure and the expectations that we put on ourselves that are often false burdens. Remember, I talked about false beliefs? Then we begin to take on false burdens. And we don't make room for support. We don't make room for breakthroughs. We don't make room for advancement, for growth, because we are the judge and the jury. We are putting it back on ourselves to untangle and get us out of, and I call it my group Unstruggle. If you don't have the awareness and haven't developed it, sometimes you don't even recognize you're in the struggle.
Yeah.
And so getting to a point that we can source help, we can source support so that we begin to grow and develop in those areas that I call blind spots. And everybody has them. There are things about yourself, things about your thoughts, things about your habits, things about your beliefs, things about your life, that they are so fixed in our current state of reality that we don't even notice them. We don't even notice them. So to course correct something that you didn't notice in the first place, it's kind of hard to do. So I love that you were committed to taking a deeper look. I love that you even, were able to look at the then and the now. And what I leave you with is the opportunity to decide today, to make a new choice, to make a new decision, to create a new possibility for now. 40 was 40.
Yeah.
Today is today. And as long as you are here, you get a new choice. You get to decide. And that's being powerful. And that's creating power. And it takes you out of that powerless loop that we talked about, even when it comes to, the eating out of frustration or stress or boredom or anger or depressed or, all those things. You get to start over. You get to start over. You get to start over. So source support. You got this, Shelby.
Yes.
You can do this. You are living proof that you are committed, because you wouldn't have jumped on this screen.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have gone live just like that on a whim if you weren't committed. So just, pat yourself on the back and say, hey girl, we are not giving up on each other.
Yes.
Look in the mirror and say, hey, we are ride or die. We are each other's best friends. We got to have each other. So whenever those blame, shames, and guilt start coming up, you gotta go into that self-loving. You gotta really put forth the effort to be self-loving, to be self-kind, all of those things. And then you make yourself available for what's next.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for jumping on tonight. I so
Thank
appreciate you. So
Thank
appreciate
you. I'll be calling you soon.
All right. And I'll be answering as soon as you call. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Did anybody else have anything? Tasha, yes, I'm going to ask Kelly to help me make sure that there's the replay for this. I definitely agree. Healing is a process. It is a journey. And, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. It's so worth it. It's so worth it. When it feels, uncomfortable and it feels bad and it just doesn't feel like you're making any progress, just tell yourself, keep going. You're heading in the right direction. Because you know what? Sometimes when we're too comfortable, it's because we're unwilling to really address the truth. So I had a post that sometimes it's hard to face the truth because lies just feel better. So you if you're feeling uncomfortable in that healing process, that's the time to dig in even further, because you know you headed somewhere. You know you're on to something. You know that a breakthrough is on the way. It's around the corner. And when I say breakthrough, I'm telling you, you got to recognize small breakthroughs. You got to be able to look at those small breakthroughs and say it's a breakthrough nonetheless. You know how sometimes people will say, well, talk about getting through college or something like that. And well, it doesn't matter. Nobody asked you what was your GPA. You just got the paper. Hey, that's what it is. So just take that small breakthrough and say, hey, that's a breakthrough nonetheless. So I definitely hear you. Whoever put in there, healing is a process. It is. It could be painful. It could be uncomfortable. It could hurt. And sometimes you even may feel like you are going backwards. Sometimes you may feel like it's not even, nothing's even working. This is crazy. What am I doing? But stick it out, stick it out, stick it out. And as I often say, run towards it. Run towards that pain, baby. Run towards it. Run and jump right in it. And the more you do that, the easier it gets, the easier it gets, the easier it gets. So I have so enjoyed everybody being here. Thank y'all for jumping on tonight for Girl Talk Live. When guilt gets in the way, guess what? You got to recognize it for what it is. It's trickery. It's trickery. It is not truth. Guilt is not a high vibe frequency. So you have to get in front of that guilt and like, not today. What am I really dealing with? And what choices do I have? What opportunities, what possibilities are in front of me? So that's it for tonight, y'all. It's 7:47. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Kim. Kim said it's absolutely a journey, but it's worth it. Work. It's worth it. Work. You got this, Shelby. Tasha said, yeah, why is this me? This has definitely been my struggle. Healing is a process. Somebody else said, I agree. On the other side, it would be so worth it. Somebody saying, hey, and thanks, I needed this message. Well, thank you, because I needed you too. And if you haven't heard it at all, if you haven't heard it enough, and if you can stand to hear it just one more time today, guess what? I love you. I love you. I love you. So bye for now. Bliss and blessings to you.